The morning my son decided I was too old to drive, I was standing in the garage with a screwdriver in my mouth and the radio turned too loud. The screwdriver tasted like rust and oil. Same as always. The radio was playing an old Sinatra song, the kind Ellen used to hum while folding laundry. I kept it loud on purpose. Silence has weight when you live alone long enough. I was trying to fix the garage door sensor. It had been blinking red for 3 days, refusing to close unless I held the button down like it wanted proof I was still alive. Technology does that to you after 70. It tests your patience, then your dignity. Dad. Mark's voice came from the kitchen door. Sharp, managerial. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't hear him, because I wanted to finish tightening the screw. There's a satisfaction in finishing small things when the rest of your life feels unfinished. Dad, can you come inside for a second? I wiped my hands on a rag that used to be white and walked in. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and cheap coffee. The kind Mark brought over in cardboard trays from places with Italian names and American morals. He was standing by the table, arms crossed, keys already in his hand. My keys. Sit down, he said. That was new. I'm fine standing, I replied. He sighed. A practice sigh. The one people use when they want credit for patience. We need to talk about the car. I looked at the keys. The black plastic fob was chipped on one corner. I dropped it once in a parking lot in 2014, the year Ellen got sick. Funny how objects remember things even when people pretend not to. What about it? I asked. Mark glanced at his phone, then back at me, avoiding eye contact like a teenager about to lie. You scraped the bumper last week. It was a trash can, I said. It moved. Dad. I was there. It moved. He pressed his lips together. Same expression his mother used when she didn't want to laugh, but also didn't want to argue. He didn't get that from me. You also missed the turn on Maple again, he continued. And Mrs. Kowalski said you almost hit her mailbox. I waved, I said. She waved back. That's not the point. No, I agreed. It never is. He finally looked at me then. Really looked. The way people do when they're measuring something they plan to take. You're 74, he said. Your reflexes aren't what they used to be. Your vision. My vision is fine. You wear 2 pairs of glasses. One for reading. One for the TV. I don't drive through books or sitcoms. He didn't smile. I think it's time, he said gently, that you stop driving. There it was. Not a suggestion. A sentence with no appeal. I'll drive you, he added quickly. Groceries, appointments, whatever you need. This isn't punishment. It's safety. Safety. That word people use when they want control to sound like love. I thought of the Explorer sitting in the driveway, 2010 model, paid in full. I'd written the check myself, shaking hands and all, the month after Ellen's funeral. I needed something solid then, something that still answered to me. That car is mine, I said. Yes, he replied too fast. Of course it is. But you decided otherwise. He hesitated just long enough to tell me everything. For now, he said, just until we figure things out. He held out his hand. I looked around the kitchen. The table Ellen refinished herself. The chair with the loose leg she always meant to fix. The clock above the sink that had been 5 minutes fast for 20 years because she liked being early. I took the keys from the table. They felt lighter than they should have. Be careful, I said, placing them in his palm. His shoulders relaxed instantly. Victory does that to people. I will, Dad, he said. I promise. He kissed my cheek, grabbed his jacket, and walked out. The engine started a moment later. I stood there listening as the sound faded down the street. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. And for the first time since Ellen died, I realized something important. I hadn't just handed over my car. I'd handed over permission. For the first week, Mark behaved like a hero. He showed up on time, knocked instead of barging in, took me to the grocery store on Wednesdays and the clinic on Mondays. Even carried the heavy bags without being asked like he wanted witnesses, the cashier, the nurse, God, to see what a good son looks like. See, he said once, loading canned soup into my pantry. You don't need the car. You've got me. I nodded, smiled, said thank you. Old men learn early when silence buys time. The Explorer always came back to the driveway by evening. Parked straight, engine warm, smelling faintly of gasoline and something else, metal, maybe, or burnt rubber. Not the smell of groceries. Not the smell of hospital parking lots. On Thursday night, I noticed a fuel gauge. I topped it off myself the week before. Full tank. Habit. Ellen liked things full, fridge, tank, silence. Now it was nearly empty. Long drive? I asked when Mark dropped me off. Traffic? He said immediately. Too immediately. Had to run some errands after. What kind of errands? Stuff, he replied, already looking at his phone. You wouldn't want to hear about it. That was true, but not for the reason he thought. The next morning, I went out to the driveway with my coffee. Cheap instant. 2 sugars. Arthritis, medicine, dissolving on my tongue like chalk. I opened the back door of the car. There was dirt on the floor mats. Dark, greasy dirt. The kind that sticks to shoes and doesn't belong in parking lots. A smell crept up, oil, rust, something sharp and chemical. I knelt slowly and picked up a glove from under the seat. Black, heavy, cut-resistant. Not the kind you wear to pump gas or load oranges. That afternoon I checked the garage. My old toolbox was untouched, but something had shifted. A pry bar I didn't own leaned against the wall. A socket set sat open on the workbench, metric sizes, clean, new. The brand name scratched off with something sharp. Mark didn't ask permission. He never does when he thinks something already belongs to him. I waited. Friday. He didn't come home until after midnight. I was awake. Old habits. Sleep comes in pieces now. I heard the engine idle longer than usual. A phone call. Laughter. Low, quick, careless. Then footsteps. The next morning, curiosity beat dignity. I sat in the driver's seat. The dashboard lit up like a confession. I don't understand most modern systems, but I know menus. I know lists. I spent decades finding lies in spreadsheets people swore were clean. I pressed a button labeled navigation, then recent destinations. The screen filled. Same addresses. Over and over. Industrial streets. Warehouses. Salvage yards. No grocery stores. No pharmacy. No church. One location made my stomach tighten. East Ridge Auto Salvage. I knew that place. I'd audited a company there in the late 90s. Shut down for tax fraud. Reopened under a cousin's name. Same rusted sign. Same broken fence. I scrolled further. Times. 11:43 p.m. 2:17 a.m. 4:05 a.m. Miles logged that didn't match traffic. I turned the car off and sat there longer than I should have. That afternoon, Mark came by with takeout. Burgers this time. Grease soaking through the paper bag. You good? He asked, handing one to me. Fine, I said. Busy night. He froze for half a second. A blink too long. Why? No reason. He laughed, but it was thin. You worry too much. No, I said quietly. I used to count. He didn't hear that part, or pretended not to. After he left, I checked my bank account. Small withdrawals. At first, $400, $600, labeled gas. Then a transfer I didn't recognize. $8,750. My hand shook on the mouse. The description was blank. I leaned back in the chair Ellen used to sit in and felt something settle into place. Not fear. Understanding. The car wasn't just transportation anymore. It was a tool. And my son was using it for work he didn't want me to see. That night, I opened a yellow legal pad and wrote the date at the top. Carefully. Neatly. The way you do when you plan to remember everything. By the end of the second week, the yellow legal pad had a personality of its own. Dates lined up neatly on the left. Times. Mileage. Addresses copied carefully from the dashboard screen. I wrote slowly, not because my hand hurt, though it did, but because accuracy is a form of respect, even for ugly truths. Every night Mark took a car, I wrote it down. Every morning it came back smelling like hot metal and cold money. I stopped asking him questions. Questions warn people. Silence invites mistakes. Instead, I watched. On Tuesday, the Explorer returned with the rear seats folded down. That hadn't been the case when he left. There were scratches on the plastic panels. Fresh ones. Long, careless lines. What were you hauling? I asked casually when he dropped off groceries. Just boxes, he said. Helped a friend move. What kind of friend? You don't know him. That was true. I didn't know this version of my son either. The next morning, I found a receipt under the passenger seat. It wasn't even hidden. just crumpled like trash. East Ridge salvage. Cash, $1,850. Item, cat converter used. I sat there a long time with that paper in my hand. Catalytic converters. Everyone knew about them now. Quick theft. Quick resale. Platinum, palladium, rhodium. Metals worth more than honesty if you don't mind sleeping poorly. Mark had never slept poorly in his life. I remembered him at 16, crying because his phone wasn't the newest model. Ellen had looked at me then, tired but hopeful, and said, "He'll grow out of it." Some people don't grow out of hunger. They just rename it. I checked my bank account again. Another transfer. $12,400. Then another 2 days later. $9,100. Total in 1 month. $41,000. All labeled as internal movement. Same account access he'd had since Ellen died. In case something happens, he'd said back then. I just want to help. Help has a way of changing shape. I printed the statements and slid them into a folder. Read, the kind accountants use when they expect trouble. That afternoon, Mark was late. He texted once, running behind. At 11:27 p.m., I heard the engine. I didn't turn on the lights. From the living room window, I watched him unload the back. Long shapes wrapped in moving blankets. Heaven. One slipped and hit the pavement with a dull clang that traveled straight through my chest. He cursed quietly. Another man was with him. Shorter, thick neck, baseball cap pulled low. They spoke in low voices. Next batch by Friday. Prices went up. Old man doesn't notice. That last part stuck. When Mark came inside, I was sitting at the table with a glass of water. No TV. No radio. "You're up," he said, startled. "Couldn't sleep. Everything okay?" "Yes," I said. "Is everything okay with you?" He shrugged, dropping his keys on the counter. "My keys. Just work." "What kind of work?" He laughed. A sharp sound. Defensive. "Jesus, Dad. You sound like the IRS." I didn't smile. "I used to work with them," I said. "They hate surprises." He stared at me, then really stared, like he was recalculating. "You wouldn't understand," he said finally. "It's complicated." "Money usually isn't," I replied. "People are." He grabbed a beer from a fridge without asking. Another small habit change. Ownership creeping in. "You don't need to worry," he said, popping the cap. "I've got everything under control." I looked at the bottle, sweating in his hand, at the confidence, at the carelessness, at the man who thought I was finished counting. After he left, I went back to the garage. Under the workbench, behind a box of old Christmas lights, I found something new. A cordless saw. Not mine. Metal filings glittered on the concrete, like evidence waiting to be acknowledged. I sat on the stool Ellen used when she planted seeds in winter and felt the last piece fall into place. This wasn't borrowing. It wasn't help. It was a business. And my son had built it using my car, my money. And the one thing he was sure I no longer had, attention. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. That night, I wrote one more line in the legal pad. Total estimated profit, $63,000 and climbing. Then I underlined it twice. Not in anger. In preparation. I didn't call the police right away. That's something people don't understand when they hear stories like this. They imagine a moment, a snap, a shout, a righteous phone call made with shaking hands. That's how movies do it. Real life is quieter. Real life is sitting at your kitchen table at 5:12 a.m., drinking coffee that tastes like cardboard, staring at a yellow legal pad, and realizing that the man you raised would sell you piece by piece if it made his life easier. I needed certain, not suspicion, not hurt feelings dressed up as evidence. So I waited another week. That week, Mark got sloppy. He stopped wiping down the interior. Grease smudges appeared on the steering wheel. A deep scratch ran along the rear bumper, the kind you get backing up too fast near concrete posts. The gas gauge lived permanently below a quarter tank. On Wednesday, I checked the GPS again. New locations this time. A scrapyard across state lines. A storage unit complex. A closed tire shop behind a chain link fence. The times didn't change. Late nights, early mornings. I printed everything. Bank statements, GPS logs, screenshots of mileage discrepancies. I even photographed the tools in my garage, the saw, the gloves, the metal dust, laying them out on my workbench like a quiet exhibit. When you've been an accountant long enough, you learn something important. Truth isn't dramatic. It's cumulative. The call happened on Friday. Mark had just left. Took the car to help a buddy. His words. Not even eye contact this time. I sat down in the living room, Ellen's photo across from me. She wore that expression she always had when she knew something was wrong, but trusted me to handle it. I wondered briefly what she would say. Probably nothing. She'd just hand me a pen. I dialed the non-emergency number first. Hung up. Dialed again. They transferred me. A man answered. Calm voice. Tired. Professional. Detective Alvarez. My name is Thomas Reed, I said. I believe my vehicle is being used in an ongoing felony operation. There was a pause. Paper rustling. Can you explain, sir? So I did. I talked slowly. Carefully. Dates first. Then locations. Then amounts. I read numbers the way I used to in audit meetings, clearly, with no emotion. I told him about the catalytic converters, the bank transfers, the GPS routes. I didn't mention Mark at first. When I finished, Alvarez said, Is the individual using your vehicle aware that you know? No, I said, and I'd like to keep it that way. Another pause. Sir, he said, do you understand that what you're describing involves grand theft, trafficking stolen goods, and money laundering? Yes. And that the primary suspect is... My son, I said. Yes. Silence this time. Longer. You're willing to cooperate? I looked around the room. The furniture Ellen chose. The rug we argued about. The clock still 5 minutes fast. I'm willing to tell the truth, I said. That's the same thing. He exhaled slowly. All right, here's what's going to happen. He explained the steps. Surveillance. Confirmation. Timing. He asked if I felt safe. I'm 74, I said. I lock my doors and drink my coffee hot. I'll manage. At the end of the call, he said something that surprised me. You did the right thing, Mr. Reed. I didn't respond. Right and wrong lose their shine when blood is involved. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I did something that felt strange but necessary. I went to the drawer where I kept my will. I read it once. Then I closed it. Some decisions I realized don't need rewriting. That night, Mark didn't come home until nearly 2. I was awake. When he walked in, he smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. Hey, Dad, he said. You should get some sleep. I will, I replied. And for the first time since he took my keys, I meant it. Because the plan was no longer mine alone. And the car was about to take its last trip for him. The police chose Saturday. They always do. People are looser on Saturdays. Less cautious. More confident. Crime likes weekends. Detective Alvarez told me they'd wait until Mark followed his usual pattern. Same route. Same drop-off. Same sense of safety. Routine is a gift criminals give law enforcement without realizing it. Don't change anything, Alvarez said on the phone that morning. Act normal. At 74, acting normal mostly means moving slowly and not asking questions. Mark arrived at 9:40 a.m., keys jangling, coffee in hand. Morning, Dad, he said. I'm going to need the car most of the day. For work? I asked. Yeah. What kind? He smirked. The kind that pays. That was new. He wasn't hiding anymore. I nodded and stepped aside. Bring it back before dark, I said. He laughed. You worry too much. He didn't look back as he drove off. I sat by the window for the rest of the morning. Didn't read. Didn't turn on the TV. Just watched the street, neighbors washing cars, kids on bikes. A woman walking a dog that pulled harder than she did. Normal life. Unaware. At 2:57 p.m., my phone rang. Mr. Reed, Alvarez said. He's on his way. My stomach did not. That surprised me. Where? I asked. Your address. Of course it was. Mark liked using my driveway. Familiar. Private. Safe. They'll follow him in. Alvarez continued. When he unloads, we move. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table. The same chair. The same wobble. I folded the napkin under the leg automatically. The clock ticked. 5 minutes fast. At 3:18 p.m., the Explorer pulled in. Mark jumped out, energetic, confident. He popped the trunk and reached inside. That's when the unmarked cars rolled up. 2 of them. Quiet. Precise. For a second, Mark didn't understand what he was seeing. Then he did. "What the hell?" he started. "Mark Reed," Alvarez said, stepping out. "Police. Step away from a vehicle." Mark's face went through several emotions in quick succession. Confusion, anger, calculation, and finally something close to panic. "Dad," he shouted, turning toward the house. "What is this?" I stepped onto the porch. "I told you to be careful," I said. The words landed heavier than I expected. Alvarez nodded to his partner. They opened the trunk. Blankets came off. Metal gleamed. "Are you kidding me?" Mark yelled. "This is a misunderstanding." "Hands behind your back," Alvarez said calmly. "No, you don't get it." Mark twisted toward me again. "You set me up?" I shook my head. "I didn't," I said. "You did." The handcuffs closed with a sound that echoed off the houses. Neighbors came out. Someone filmed. Someone whispered. Mark struggled, then stopped. He looked smaller suddenly, younger, like the boy who once cried over a phone. "You're my father," he said, voice breaking. "You're supposed to protect me." "I did," I replied. "I taught you right from wrong. What you did with that wasn't my choice." Alvarez read him his rights. Mark stared at me as they led him to the car. "You think this makes you right?" he spat. "You think this fixes anything?" "No," I said, "but it stops it." The doors closed. The engine started. The unmarked cars pulled away. The street returned to normal in minutes. People lose interest fast when the drama belongs to someone else. I stood there alone. The Explorer remained in the driveway. Empty now. Silent. Alvarez walked up to me. "We'll need the vehicle for evidence," he said. "But you'll get it back." "That's fine," I replied. He hesitated. "You okay?" I looked at the house. At Ellen's window. "I will be," I said. That evening. The driveway felt larger than it ever had. For the first time in months, nothing was missing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with applause. Sometimes it comes quietly, in handcuffs, on a Saturday afternoon. And sometimes it parks right in front of your house. Winter came early that year. Not the dramatic kind with blizzards and headlines, just cold mornings, stiff fingers, and a sky that stayed the color of dirty glass. The kind of winter that doesn't announce itself, only settles in and waits. Mark took a plea deal. I heard it from Alvarez first, not from my son. 8 years. Reduced for cooperation. Reduced because the paperwork was clean, the routes documented, the money traced neatly back through accounts that thought they were invisible. He never thanked me for that. The courtroom smelled like disinfectant and old wood. I sat in the back row alone. No family drama. No speeches. Just procedure. Mark didn't look at me until the very end. When he did, there was something unfamiliar in his eyes. Not anger. Not blame. Calculation was gone. What replaced it wasn't regret. Regret takes courage. It was emptiness. I nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not goodbye. Acknowledgement. After that, life simplified itself. No more late-night engines. No more checking GPS logs. No more numbers that didn't add up. The bank returned part of the money. Not all. Enough to remind me that honesty doesn't always get reimbursed. But it does stop the bleeding. I fixed the garage door sensor. It took me 2 tries and a YouTube video, but I got it working. Red light gone. Green steady. Small victory. I started driving again, not far, not fast. Library on Tuesdays. Diner on Fridays. Cemetery on Sundays. Ellen's stone was cold when I touched it, even through gloves. I did what I could, I told her once. The wind moved through the trees like an answer that didn't need words. People ask sometimes if I miss my son. That's a hard question. I miss the boy he was. I miss the man I thought he'd become. I don't miss the person he chose to be. Those are 3 different losses. They sit differently in the chest. On my 75th birthday, I bought myself something small, a new keyring, plain leather, no cracks, no history yet. I moved the old fob onto it. Same car, same engine, different weight in my pocket. At night, the house still is quiet. That hasn't changed. But quiet isn't the same as empty. Quiet can mean nothing is being taken anymore. The clock above the sink still runs 5 minutes fast. I let it. Some lessons come late. Some justice comes quietly. And some dignity only returns when you stop giving it away. That's what remains. Not bitterness, not triumph. Just a man, his car, and the keys, finally where they belong.